my attorney was writing some things down and she said, I really don't work with a lot of high asset women. And I said, what? I said, what does that mean? Oftentimes in these divorces, 9 times out of 10, the high asset part is categorized to the male. So the male has the money, has the power, has the ability to hold the strategy. And I remember she said to me, you are a high asset client, and as a result of that, you are a high asset woman. And I thought, are you just talking about money? And she said, well, Eloiza, you also have the ability to make a lot of decisions. In that context, to buy your freedom. Of course you're happy. Of course you feel accomplished. Of course you feel very proud and satisfied and fulfilled. It is tiring to uphold that all the time. You have money, you have friends, you have anything that you want, but you become a class into your own.
And let's say in the intimate relationship side, what would you say to men whose partners earn more than they do?
So first of all, 2 things. Number 1.
Welcome to Disrupt the Podcast with your co-host Andrés Tapia
And Eloiza Domingo.
where we challenge conventional thinking and we look at the new ways that are shaping our future. In this episode, we're going to look at disruption of gender stereotypes in the issues of power. And this time, Eloiza will continue to be co-host with me, but she's also going to be the subject matter expert because I'm going to interview her, but Eloiza's not going to let me get away with just being asking the questions, right?
That's right.
So I'm going to get some questions back, but she is a subject matter expert today, and away we go. So, Eloiza, in your writing and in your speaking and in your consulting, you've coined a phrase, high asset women. And in fact, you go further and you say, why no one wants to talk about it. Mm-hmm. Tell us. What do you mean by high asset women?
Yeah.
And then why doesn't anyone want to talk about it? Because I want to talk about it.
Yeah, no,
I mean, I'm one of those people that wants to talk about it.
Well, and I find that you might be actually one of the very few. So, and we're actually going to talk about that today. So I'm actually going to read this because I think that there are some words in here that I may miss, and I think it's significant. High asset women are an emerging class of women who possess significant financial power, independence, and influence, often out-earning their partners, challenging traditional gender roles in wealth, relationships, and leadership, but more than their net worth. Andrés, what truly defines high asset women is emotional stamina, calculated decision-making, and the unapologetic rise of feminine agency. So I read that. What does that actually mean for me? The reason where I kind of came up with that term, actually it was kind of gifted to me. So I got divorced in 2019. And at the time I was making about 13 times more than my partner. And I honestly, I didn't really think about it. So I got, a lawyer, as you do in a divorce, and she was going through everything with me. And I remember kind of making choices. And in a divorce, I did not have a prenup. So we were going kind of this 50-50 thing. What assets do you have? What assets does he have? And how do you split that up? And I remember she said, my attorney was writing some things down. And she said, I really don't work with a lot of high asset women. And I said, what? I said, what does that mean? She explained herself as a high asset lawyer for high asset divorces. I said, I'm sorry, I'm not following what you're saying. And she said, so there's a significant amount of financial wealth that you're bringing in that we have to split up. So that alone is a high asset, it's a financial term. And then she says, but oftentimes in these divorces, 9 times out of 10, the high asset part is categorized to the male. So the male has the money, has the power, has the ability to hold the strategy, has the ability to make the decisions, calculated or even uncalculated, because you're not going to lose a lot of money regardless. And so you have a lot more freedom, in these divorces. And I remember she said to me, I don't know, I mean, you are a high asset client. And as a result of that, you are a high asset woman. And I thought, are you just talking about money? And she said, well, Eloiza, you also have the ability to make a lot of decisions. And for you to, in that context, to buy your freedom. And I thought, wow, that is really, interesting. And so subsequently, I kind of thought about it. Now, we're not going to talk about, and we could or could not talk about the divorce, but she's right. I mean, because I had the ability to have money and wealth, and I was able to mobilize myself, I was able to make decisions that I think that I wouldn't ordinarily have had the opportunity to do had I not had wealth or money. But to me, honestly, this idea, Andrés, of high asset women, asset is a financial term, but this ability to be mobile in your space, to make decisions, to be very comfortable in making those decisions. And as a result of that, to have presence in a room because you have that level of confidence, that to me is what a high asset woman is. And it is an emerging class that is finding itself to be a little bit more unapologetic.
A growing number of women are out earning their partners.
They are.
And it's a number that continues to increase quite a bit. So this is a growing phenomenon that will be more prevalent. But as it grows more prevalent, there's still resistance to this concept, right? And in fact, you yourself were surprised to go, wait, what do you mean? Like high asset woman that seemed like an oxymoron just to your own ears.
Yeah.
How did you resolve it? And then how are you helping people resolve it for themselves?
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm lucky in that the way that I was raised to have a lot of value for me as a person, to have a lot of value for me as a woman. So to me, you're right. Hearing this about this idea of me being a high asset person, I kind of grew up where, I was built around, you need to be proud of yourself. You need to have a good, strong ego and strong self-esteem. But at the same time, I still was also around gender stereotypes. Being a Filipina, especially the firstborn Filipina, you are raised to be submissive to men regardless, actually, of who you are. Submissive to authority, especially males of authority. So that was something that was very interesting. So when it was introduced to me, this concept that you are a high asset person, meaning you have money and wealth to be agile in your decision making. As a result of that, you're also able to make decisions on your own. You're also able to make decisions for your family on your own. I think to me, Andres, it actually scared me.
Why?
I don't think that I really understood the level of power, that I had. Because even though that, so again, let's just ground this. I was introduced to that concept when I still had a partner. And at the time when I was actually trying to remove myself from a partner, to me, it was just a kind of a checkbox. Oh, this is, he gets this money, I get this money, we get this much time with the kids. But then when that concept was introduced to me, Eloiza, you have the ability to do this because you have wealth, because you have decision power, because you have this. I don't know if I knew what exactly to do with that. And so when I moved into this space of being a single mom, being an executive, having wealth and the ability to do that, even though it was quite kind of a boost, for me, I don't know if I knew entirely kind of how to, to live into that. Also being a very strong personality, I naturally have a very strong personality. I also think kind of figuring that out in the corporate world and figuring out how to be very comfortable with that, especially with, I saw this quote once that said that an entire generation, we taught an entire generation of women to be strong, to be powerful, and to speak up for themselves. What we didn't do at the same time is we didn't teach the men how to work with those women.
Oh, wow.
And that to me is where that juxtaposition comes in.
Okay, and I want to come to that interaction,
Yeah.
the female-male interaction in a bit. But I just want to have a deeper grasp on this high asset women. You alluded to this, but I want you to elaborate. You said, it's about financial assets, but not only.
No.
And you said the freedom to choose, the power to choose, but what other things come? How else would you characterize more fully a high asset woman?
I think in general, we have been taught that you have to need someone. You have to be attached to someone. Maybe not necessarily a dependency, but rather that, no, you should partner. You should become a mom. You should support. You should be in this environment where you can, if you're going to bring money, you're also going to bring it with a partner and you're going to, raise children together. So it is very, very rare. I don't know if any woman has ever been taught to be a single mom, to do this on your own. I mean, it is not necessarily a concept, that's out there. And so I think this idea of high asset women having money, but also having the ability to make decisions on your own without the need to check in with someone. Are we having this to eat? Or is this where we're living? This is the house that you want to buy. This is the paint that you want to put in. Having the ability to make those decisions, I think, is incredibly romantic, and women love that. But at the same time, that's not necessarily what we were taught. So all of a sudden, when you have the ability to do all of that, at least from what I have found, is that then those women are kind of put over there. It's like, well, so what is it? So you hate men? You don't need men?
It's implied, right?
Like it is implied.
You also mentioned emotion when you start realizing this about that's what you are.
Yeah.
Tell me more about that emotion.
Yeah. So you talk about implications. Actually, I'm going to flip it. This concept of high asset men. High asset man is somebody with money, with wealth, with the ability to make decisions. I mean, I think that we know who this is. This person that walks into the room and can make decisions, can present, is smart, has good, clothing, and can hold his own. Doesn't talk about the kids. He may or may not have kids. He may or may not have a partner, but he stands on his own. And it's like, whoa. He can go golfing. He can go, do this stuff. You flip that and you put that to a woman, and all of a sudden, is that woman bold, or is she the other B word? Is she decisive, or is she, again, the B word? So she has a lot of clothes. Is she a diva? What is that? Why is she always, like that? So she can make those decisions. So again, it's that juxtaposition.
And a double standard.
It's a double standard. So all of a sudden, myself as a high asset, woman, that double standard, women also live inside of this world where it is difficult to always live in that way because then we always have to be strong.
Yeah.
You can't show your emotion, you can't show that you need help, because that high asset man is also detached. That high asset man is elusive. It is this idea of wow, you can't get to him, he's so bold, he's so, whatever. And so in the same way, when women then show that, again, all of these juxtapositions around, she's cold.
Distant.
Yeah. But then at the same time that I'm living in this space where it's damn, this is really hard. This is really hard to all of a sudden figure out that you have a lot of power, you do have wealth, you're trying to do this, especially as a single woman, and you can't ask for help and you can't show your emotion because of what? So I think that's the other, kind of, at least for me and what I found with other high asset women, it is that juxtaposition. What space do you hold and how much do you give up? Because all of a sudden, do you then give up, that status that you've achieved?
Great exposition and explanation. But you didn't answer my question about how does it make you feel, especially in the realization that you are a high asset woman.
So proud. I think, of course, there's a level of pride when you have achieved the ability to have wealth on your own, to not need or depend on somebody to say, oh, I can, how many times of, oh, she can pay her bills, on her own, you keep up with rent, you keep up with mortgage. I have the cars, I have the kids, I have 4 boys. Of course, you're proud, to be able, to do that. Of course, you're happy. Of course, you feel accomplished. Of course, you feel very, again, proud and satisfied and fulfilled in who it is that you are and what you've actually done. It is tiring to uphold that all the time, to feel that way and to have all of that all the time, because what comes with that in my experience is the inability to ask for help, the inability to show any weakness, the inability to show that you're off one day. Why? You have money, you have friends, you have anything that you want, but you become a class into your own. And so it is difficult to understand that sometimes.
And you and I have talked about this, off the mics. I've picked up on your journey that at the beginning it was confusing.
Yeah.
Because it didn't fit sort of how you were raised. I
was raised, right.
Right. A sense of uncertainty, how do I behave in this? But as you came fully into embracing it, and you did, you realized that, I don't feel that same uncertainty I did at the beginning. I'm not confused anymore, but there's a loneliness to it.
There is.
And because society's not wired that way. Most men are not wired that way.
Women are also not wired that way.
So tell us more about dealing with society, dealing with men, and dealing with women.
So what's really interesting, and I appreciate you leading us here, Andrés, because this is actually a topic I don't like talking about, but I think it's necessary for women who find themselves to be high asset women. It is certainly one thing to deal with men who feel that they are emasculated because I have money, I have power, I have the ability, I don't really need you, and so I can hold that, and it is one thing to deal with that. For me or for other high asset women, it is quite another to deal with other women who say to you things like, well, what, and again, my experience is that it's almost like this cut at the knees, this passive aggressiveness. I use the word emasculation. I have been told more than once, more than twice, more than 3 times that I emasculate men, not by men. I have been told that by women. I have been told that I should be careful about how it is that I hold myself. I should be careful about how it is that I raise my children because I have all 4 boys. I've been told that, that's also one of the reasons why you couldn't hold a partner, because you are too strong. No, Andrés, yeah. And so when you have other women who, by the way, at least 2 or 3 of them have said that to me, I would actually consider high asset themselves, very strong financially, really strong in their own, kind of right, standing with confidence in their decisions, ability to make the decisions on their own with no dependency on someone else, with a lot of confidence and authenticity. That's quite a
But what's going on there? I mean, if they are high asset women, they have the confidence, they have the power, but the definition you gave earlier had to do with being able to stand on your own and not feel that you're dependent on a man.
Yeah.
So how is it that these women then say, you are emasculating.
Yeah.
And they're not. I mean, what's
right.
different?
Yeah. So two things. Number one, you and I are in culture. You and I do a lot of culture work. And I think one of the ways that people talk about culture is this idea of the water that, fish live and breathe and operate in water. And so what is their culture? It's the water, And so the women that I hear this from and the men, we all live in the same water, so we're all indoctrinated into, well, women should be submissive. Women should, even if you do have money, there still should be some level of dependency, on men, or let men be.
So is it an act?
An act of what?
Well, to kind of make the men feel as if they have more power or something. I mean, because I'm trying to understand if you have the same status with these other women.
Right.
Both high, all of you high net asset women, but yet there's a behavior or an attitudinal shift I'm trying to understand.
Yeah, well, I think with the question that you're asking, and I've been asked this as well, is first of all, I think what we need to do is define emasculization, okay? So, you and I both know about Lorena Bobbitt, who...
Quite the story. But not all our viewers may know.
Yeah, okay. So
we got
Lorena,
all ages in front
You're
of
right. So Lorena Bobbitt is this woman who emasculated her husband by essentially cutting off his genitalia and throwing it out a window because he
Did they ever find it?
I actually think that they did. I think that they did find his manhood. But she became this symbol of kind of like female power. And so this concept of Bobbitt or Lorena Bobbitt, it becomes funny. It becomes this legend. It becomes this, thing. So this concept of emasculating men can be defined by, or is defined by, taking away the power of a man, taking away his manhood, taking away his ability to make decisions confidently, So what is the opposite of that? The opposite of that would be enabling the man to lead,
It's a little, leading. Sounds like coddling to me.
It might be coddling. It might be the way that I've been described, or that I have been told. Like, so what's the opposite of not emasculating men, is letting them lead, letting them feel that they're in power.
Letting them think they're
letting them think that they're in power. Yeah.
When that's considered not emasculating? What I'm saying? I mean,
I agree.
That to me sounds emasculating.
Yeah. Right. Because it's this concept of you're just playing with what I'm actually thinking.
I'm trying to understand the stance, why the stance is different, your stance, compared to these women who actually judge you, even though you're all high asset women.
I think for me, it is also this idea of authenticity, living in who it is that you are. And, it is, as corny as it sounds, it is that concept of, I'm not going to dim my light because someone else, needs to feel a certain way, or that I need to patronize, or, like, as you mentioned, Andrés, coddle somebody. So let me interview you just for a second. Okay. You've known me for a long time. You've known me for, my gosh, easily a decade or more, So you've actually seen me grow in my career, although I would challenge to say, I don't know if the Eloiza that you met then is necessarily any different. I mean, I think I've come into my own. But how have you felt about, have I emasculated you ever?
No, I'm not out there in the woods looking for something.
I didn't throw anything out the window.
No, not at all. I think that, I mean, personally, there's so many women in my life, like three sisters. The profession that I'm in, human resources and D&I, and has been very female populated, and I've worked with a lot of powerful women, high asset women. So I do not find you or any of these women a threat. Please do not condescend me and pretend that I have power, that you don't, or whatever, right? So when, but when you ask about my view of you, no, not at all. I mean, I see you as someone who's more fully coming to her own, like good, ambitious professionals do as they go and advance and take on more responsibility. That's what I've seen, right? And that's why I keep scratching my head about the reaction you get from women. But we've already touched that. But what is the reaction you get from men? I mean, you asked me my reaction too, but I just gave you my answer. Yeah. But I'm trying to understand your world. Yeah.
Yeah. So what I found is that for men who are like you, who are raised around sisters, moms, grandparents, other women who are strong, have this kind of aura of a high asset women, regardless, again, this concept of just having confidence and authority over themselves, I find that men like you who are raised around that conditioned around that, comfortable around that, I don't have any issues. It is quite a partnership. You know, I don't see that. My experience, however, is that is unfortunately it's few and far between. I do find that actually with younger men. That
You find what with younger men?
I find that with younger men, they are much more comfortable with women who have high asset capabilities and high
They
asset
grew
kind of
up with it.
qualification.
More likely have grown up with
Well, yeah,
it around.
media, celebrities. I mean, it's so different, you know, than what it is
their
their
moms.
parents, their moms, or sisters, grandparent, you know, these kinds of things. But more often than not, what I've experienced is the men who are not used to that. So take we talk about mansplaining. That has been real. This concept of, oh, well, Eloiza, you should sit here instead. Or, well, I have actually had men tell me that I wore the wrong earrings to a meeting. That I should actually think about putting my hair up for board meetings and a ponytail. Like, I'm like, wow, because that's fascinating, to me. That is really interesting to me. I had a man tell me one time that, next time you would get further if you didn't wear as much blush.
Wow.
Fascinating, to me. So this concept of mansplaining, this idea of they don't really understand what it is in front of them. So the only thing that I can do is correct. The only thing that I can do is engage. So that's one thing. The other thing that I've also seen is I then become a sexual object. It is something to be tamed, something to be taken down, something to be quieted. But it is also something that kind of creates interest and attraction. But then once they try to be around it, it's like, okay, so once I've tamed it, I'm done,
Wow. So those are already, problematic and troubling. Mm-hmm. But it probably goes further in that, how does that play out in how they see you as a leader and the opportunities that you don't get, or how if they marginalize you as a woman just in the way you did, with just commenting on your dress or your makeup, or even where you should sit, or even the sexual object thing. But it has to go beyond that, just
Absolutely.
from the day-to-day leadership
Absolutely.
work. How does that day-to-day leadership work affect, play out there?
100%. You are diminished to an object, and not just the sexual object. You are diminished to, well, she didn't make really good decisions about her presence. Her, so you are questioned in terms of your decision making because of whatever it is that they feel is normal or should be typical. You're questioned in terms of your ability your capabilities just in total. You're also questioned in terms of your intentions and how you're moving forward, your ability and your skills. All of that is not intrinsic, in the way that it may be for, a man who dresses well or holds his own.
And I want to take it even further, right, for our listeners, guys, right, like me, that, really care about how troubling this is.
Yeah.
And what is it that we should be looking for behaviorally, right? Like, that might be obvious. Like, we may not hear the man's talking about your earrings or your makeup, but what might we observe around the executive table
Great question.
Has that diminishing, marginalizing effect that if we are tuned into it and the radar's up, we can, be actually allies in it? Or
I love it.
And how could we be helpful?
Yeah. So one thing that happens, often is if I say something in a meeting, it may be brushed over, or I will not get the credit for it. So I say an idea, I would really love to move. I think that's a really great idea. I think that we need to move this table to the right. Great. All of a sudden, someone else says it, a guy or someone else.
But no one picks up on you saying it.
Nobody picks up on me saying that. Someone else says it. Oh, you know what? I think that's a really great idea. Why don't we move the table to the right? All of a sudden, oh my gosh, Joe.
What a great idea.
What a great idea. If you want to be that ally, you can say, yeah, it is a great idea, Joe. I think that Eloiza said that a couple minutes ago. So I just want to acknowledge, Eloiza, I would love to hear your idea about it. Giving time and giving space and acknowledging where that is. So that's number one. Number two, even though high asset women have a lot of confidence, we tend to come into situations where we have a lot of confidence. We also pick up a lot of nuances. So that if that's constantly happening, one thing you might see is just disengagement. I will get tired very quickly of not getting heard, And so you may see me sit back. You may see me just defer and say, it's actually back into the concept of, I'm obviously emasculating people in this room, so how do I not do that? Sit back. Make them think that they have it. Make them think that they've got that, right? So if you see that disengagement, then you might ask the question, hey, Eloiza, I would love to hear your idea. Re-engage. I think that there are a lot of ways, and I appreciate you talking about allyism because you also talked about loneliness. high asset women have had to make decisions very quickly and spontaneously to maintain not only their power, but also maintain this concept of loneliness very quickly.
Well, and let's actually go to even a touchier topic in that, appropriately so, corporate has put boundaries that, around male-female interactions that would be of a sexual nature, right? And even though when I talk to women in my life, it still happens at an extraordinary amount, even with all those boundaries, right? Yeah. So I know that many men of character sometimes are uncertain about how to interact with a woman of power, or any woman, but let's just stay with the power thing. Right. And they're aware of the boundaries and they respect them, but so to such a point that they're uncertain about how to establish a good, working, friendly, professional, close working relationship because of all the conditioning. It's a matter of calibrating. What would a healthy, high asset female and high asset male working relationship look like that is mutually respectful, but also not afraid to be close?
Yeah, I actually love this, Andres. And I want to be clear here because when you speak about conditioning, it is all of the sexual harassment training that we are required to take. And then particularly all of from the Me Too movement, it has been so clear about how men and women are supposed to interact in a work environment. So you're right. The conditioning is very real. The punitiveness is very real, and so we see that. Gosh, we could actually have an entire conversation about that. But what a healthy interaction would be is listening to the ideas, acknowledging one another as partners, asking questions. Actually interesting because the way that I'm describing it is the way that you and I have a conversation. You always ask me for my opinion. You validate my opinion. You oftentimes will have very strong opinions because you do, but at the same time, when I give you an opinion, you give me not only space and time to make it, but then I can actually see you course correct. So it's one thing to listen to me and it's one thing to give me time and space. It's quite another to say, wait a second, and then you course correct your writing or you course correct something in your life. To me, that shows me that you not only have listened, but you've taken into account and you value, my opinion. You come to me often and you actually ask sometimes even before you do something, to check in and to say, hey, I've got this really kind of off the wall idea. What do you think? And even the little things. Do you like this shirt? Should I roll up the cuffs? Because that shows that you value the big things, but also, the little things. High asset women in general, I think that we tend to be a little bit more protective of ourselves. And so it is going to take a little bit more to chip away. It is that consistency of behavior to ask questions, to incorporate the input, and not to say, I hear you, I'm now incorporating. It's like, please don't patronize. Just please don't do that, But I see that my worth and my input is making a change in your life in a really valuable way. I'm not saying to take 100% of it, but also to seek it out, but also to incorporate it. And it's the big things and the little things. I find that a lot of value, and then as a result of that, I trust you, and we do become closer.
Well, and actually, our Disrupt podcast is also about disruption, not only at work, but at play, relationships, and society. So let's take this high asset woman concept outside of the workplace. Yeah. Let's start with the conditioning that regulates healthy male-female interactions in the workplace. But when it comes outside the workplace, sometimes some of those rules and dynamics that are important to abide by in the workplace actually start to get in the way of developing good, intimate relationships, whether they're platonic relationships or they become romantic relationships. Yeah. How does that play out? And again, let's keep looking at it through the high asset woman lens.
Yeah.
What's different and what's the same?
Yeah, right. I think what is different, it's so interesting. What I do think is different, is that, and I'll just talk about it from me, as you mentioned, from a high asset, space, that I do like having power and agency and the agility, in the work to make sure to have my own space to make decisions, to lead. I'm very comfortable leading teams. I'm very comfortable, doing that. When you go, but it's also this idea that it does create a space of loneliness, and so you can't always be the leader all the time. So sometimes it is nice when you go out and somebody chooses the place that you're going to eat. It is not uncommon. My family makes fun of me all the time that, whenever we go on vacation or whenever we go out to eat, Eloiza will make the choice. It is just an assumption because of my personality. Eloiza will make the choice. Eloiza will make all the decisions. Do you know how tiring that is? When you go to like Disney World and I just want to sit back and figure out like which roller coaster are we going on? It's like, well, which one do you want to go on? Do you have a plan? No, I do not have a plan. I would really like someone else to make the decision, And so what that shows up as is this constant dependency on the woman making the decision, this high asset woman making the decision. I can, I don't have to, I don't want to. And I will say that some people have said, well, but Eloiza, you painted that picture yourself, You came into your own, you're highly accomplished, you sit in your own, skin, you are very, self-aware. And so you've made this problem for yourself. So I will say, Andrés, it is a double-edged sword because like you said, when you go out of the workplace and you try to have kind of partnered relationships, where sure, I can choose sushi or whatever, your opinion then becomes, the say-so all the time. That is really tiring. People, I think, make the assumption that high asset women want to be high asset women all the time. We want to be taken care of all the time, or we want to take care of everything all the time. We don't. I'm telling that to our audience. We don't.
So when it comes to romantic relationships, how does this play out? Because you and I have talked about how in the workplace, it's about the ideal state, and the healthy state is equality, equal power, all that.
Right.
And then a female or a male can initiate and lead and all that.
Right.
But there's something about the romantic dynamic and the male-female classic archetypes that actually play out for high asset women and for high asset men.
Yeah.
So kind of, is the script change here a little bit? And how does it change, and how does it complicate things, or how does it liberate things?
Yeah, well, Andrés, because you and I have talked about this, I'm also going to ask you the same question because you yourself have had really interesting, experiences in relationships. So I'm just going to get really real. I would like someone to hold the door for me.
Wow, that's fascinating.
I would
you
like.
just flipped the script on me a little bit here.
Yeah,
but why?
I would pull my chair out. When I come into a room, stand up. I would like to choose something, for me, to eat. What, choose, this. Ask me to dance. Don't expect that I'm just going to take your hand and go out there. Hold my hand. Do the whole, hold my hand and walk in front of me. That's so like sweet, to me. As I'm coming out of the car, put your hand out and help me out of the car. Walk in front of me. Put the umbrella up. Put me on the side of the building instead of on the sidewalk.
So what's different here?
I think what's different is that it's making decisions, for her, with her, there is still this idea. So you asked what's same and what's different. Yeah. What's the same is equality. I do think that there's still this level of equality. I do think what's different is this idea of who's leading and when. Who makes the first move on the kiss? Who makes the first move on choosing the first date? Who makes the first move on, standing up and being, I don't know, it is, I think what's different is who takes the lead and when, and that's okay.
And why is it different?
To take the lead. I think that in corporate, I do think that there is sometimes an assumption that if especially if a high asset woman knows how to lead, is making the decisions, and then if we see a man come in, it becomes mansplaining. It becomes this, you're taking the lead, you're doing this. It becomes mansplaining or patronizing.
Right. And I get that part. And we've sort of, but why is the man taking the lead outside of the corporate walls different?
So I think because in those environments, there is more of at least for me, it is this concept of, romance and partnership and relationship. And I still believe in the gentleman, I still believe in that. And I don't think that those things are exclusive of one another, by the way. I still think that you can be a gentleman and partnered and equitable in your relationships and still live, work, and feel very equitable with a high asset woman at work. I don't think that these things are, on two completely separate universes.
Yeah, and actually, from the male world here as a representative of it, that resonates with me, and it is a paradox.
Yeah.
But a paradox that I feel that men who are moving healthfully can navigate. But I see too many men having gotten so conditioned by the appropriate boundaries in corporate.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not only on the sexual moves stuff, but even on this issue of who's leading, right? And mansplaining.
Yeah.
They go, I'm not going to mansplain. I'm going to do. But then when they're on the social side or on the dating side, they're not sure
No, they hesitate.
about let's call it leading or not even leading. It's not leading. It's initiating
great
because
point.
it's not.
Yep.
Initiating is just that first move.
Yeah.
And after that is a reciprocal
it should
dynamic
be.
in a dance, right?
Yeah, it should be.
I mean, as a salsa dancer,
Yeah.
in the archetypical Latin dance, the male leads.
Yeah.
And one can discuss whether that should continue, but right now that's sort of the default. And the majority of women don't mind. But it's just the lead part, which is the first step. But
Right.
after
The
that,
initiating,
it's the dance and the going,
It should be, yeah.
and it's what the duet do together.
Yeah.
But I think some of these corporate scripts have sort of distorted.
I agree.
Some of the romantic scripts.
No, I agree.
And some of the
I agree.
romantic scripts, the more machista romantic scripts have distorted corporate dynamics.
Yeah.
And as those machista scripts in corporate have at least been modulated or regulated, it hasn't really redefined some of the romantic scripts where there seems to be an openness, and I think guys should kind of hear this, that it's okay for you to take the first step.
It is. I agree with that.
With consent.
With consent, of course. No, I agree. I mean, and this has happened, and we talked about this earlier. The conditioning is also attached to punitiveness. So if you don't do this around women or around men, then you get in trouble. You can lose your job. You can show up on CNN. You can, go to jail. So it is a very quick punitive nature. It is not necessarily a learning opportunity. Let's just be really real, about it. And so once you get it wrong, you really get it wrong. And so of course you become scared. Of course you become scared to just have a natural, kind of relationship or initiate things, with women, especially women who are strong, who are independent. And I get that.
Yeah. So what would you say? And I know we're near our time here, but staying outside of the workplace now, just in the relationship side, and let's say in the intimate relationship side, what would you say to men whose partners earn more than they do?
So first of all, two things. Number one, I think it's really critical to have conversations. I really, I think it's important to have conversations. If you feel a certain way, that's okay. I'm not, I'm never going to defer out or deflect away from if you feel a certain way because your partner, we've flipped the script in terms of gender stereotypes. And as a result of that, your partner is making X amount of money, more than you. I get that, So just have a conversation about it. I think it's really important. Not to have that conversation is really detrimental. To have these feelings stew. My hope is also that you have a partner that will listen and to say, you know what, I understand, because it's not just about the two. You're living in a world that has indoctrinated you to say that this is not normal, and that not only is this not normal, but then one of you is now more powerful. One of you is better than, one of you has more decision-making power. That's actually not what it is. So have a conversation, about it. I also think, to go back, to your conversation, what you said, Andrés, about with consent. I love this idea, of just, again, talk about it. Do you want me to, how do you feel about me asking you to dance, or would you like me to make the decision, or how would you like to make this decision, or do you like this? I think all of those conversations, you can craft a really equitable, partnership where somebody doesn't feel as lonely, all the time, and you're just making assumptions. All of this is just assumptions. talk about it, talk about it. Even me and you, as business partners and as friends, you and I have had some of those hard conversations because I think there were assumptions that were made between the two of us. But once we had the conversation, we just figured it out, right. So I will say one thing I have found that with a lot of high asset women is we do know how to make decisions. Let us help us, talk to us about our decisions.
Yeah, and I would also add, from a male perspective, that, the definition you gave at the very big top of the episode, where you define high asset women, and it wasn't just about the finances, but it was about the confidence, about the self-possession, really, about having what it needs to live a life that you want to live. That for the guys that are out there whose partners earn more than they, don't define yourself about your worth by the money you make, because then you're in a losing proposition. But if you define that you are a high asset male in a holistic sense, where whatever money you make is the money you make, but you also have your own skills, your own confidence, your own passions, your own commitments, your own impact, then it's not comparing bank accounts. Right? It's that I think you want to be in a relationship where you're both coming from a place of abundance. That's right. And the abundance comes from a variety of sources. That's
right. And I think what you're saying is really, really important in terms of the definition of asset. Asset in general, and in all frankness, I actually chose that because it is a financial term. It is really provocative. People assume it has to do with money and wealth. To your point and to what we talked about today, Andrés, it is so much more. It is about agency. And in the same way, for the guys that are out there, if you've got yourself a high asset woman, find yourself your own agency. Be inside of yourself. Whether it has to do with money, that's fine. But I agree with you. That's not the pivot here. It is kind of everything else and how you're holistically, as you mentioned, kind of handling this. So I loved this conversation. I hope that we have more, and I hope that you all enjoyed it because I think this is such a necessary topic, and this is actually where we come to what we call disrupt GPS. So what are the takeaways? Yeah. We have all these really great conceptual conversations, but what is the so what? What are some things that we can give our listeners in terms of takeaways or even practical advice? So I guess I'll start with you, Andrés. What are some disrupt GPS things that you would advise?
Yeah, I think that things have gotten so distorted on the relationship between men and women, both at work and outside of work. And I think that hopefully in this conversation, at least for me, the takeaways that I hope others will take is that navigating the complexity, and it is complex, male-female differences, and then how we paradoxically kind of things can shift from one arena to another, which can be pretty complex. But what's the way through it? And I was just struck by you said, talk about it. Yeah. I mean, it's like, I think we get into so much trouble when we try to guess.
Oh, yeah.
But if we are forthright and say, I'm a big on clarity. Let's get to clarity. And clarity is not only knowing the answer, but knowing that we don't know the answer, but that we talked about it. Yeah. Let's try to get clarity. And if the clarity is that we don't know yet or we're uncertain, that's a form of clarity.
Yeah, that's right. I agree.
And but at least we go, we're unclear about this, as opposed to, are we unclear about this? But we're not talking it through, and we're like going like this, right? So that's my character GPS takeaway.
I love it. How
about yours?
Now, for me, I think it's a couple things. First, you use this word loneliness, and it is really interesting because I don't know if I use that term a lot, but when you said it, it struck a nerve for me, which means that it's real. High asset women, we are still learning. It is to me, it is an emerging class. I specifically said that it's an emerging class of women. And the reason I say that, it's not because there's not a lot of us and that we are here in abundance. It's that we still haven't figured out, the world hasn't really figured out how to handle us. You just don't. We're either really, really these amazing divas that are like untouchable, which creates the loneliness for us, or it is, she's got it, which again creates loneliness.
And she doesn't need any help.
And she doesn't need any help.
And we all need help. Regardless.
We all need help. I'm saying, for me as a high asset woman, I do, one of the things I always teach my boys is to ask, what else can I help you with, Mom? It is not assumptive. It is just a question. What else can I help you with, Mom? It gives me the opportunity to say, I got it, or I don't need it. But for them to recognize that I'm in a space with somebody who can do it and is independent, but I just want to offer, I'm here. Do you need anything from me right now, Mom? So that they're comfortable, right, around very, very strong women. So that's number one. That is a takeaway. If you are a high asset woman, or if you have a lot of high asset women around you, I do think this concept of loneliness is very, real. So try to recognize that. But at the same time, the second thing is understand also that we are also fighting with agency, our own agency. We want to be superwoman. We want to be strong. It is very, very attainable. We are there. But at the same time, we are still trying to figure out how to be our own agent, but also surround ourselves with people who we can, you and I had a moment yesterday where I could be very, very vulnerable with you. But in that moment of my vulnerability, I didn't give up my own agency. You didn't make me give that up. You didn't make me give up me being a high asset person. So I find people who I can be around, that I can show that other side of myself. I can say I'm lonely, I'm really tired, I don't know what I'm doing, and then turn right back around and be like, oh, there she is, she's fine. She's fine,
Yeah.
Because those two things exist.
Yeah. And by the way, I'm still struck by the high asset women who don't quite support.
Yeah.
So anyway, that was another takeaway. So
yeah,
there's some messages here for the men, some messages for the women.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you for joining us for a great conversation. In our description, we'll have all of the links to follow up with Andrés, follow up with myself. And, I do write about this on LinkedIn, and I'll be covering some more videos. So I would really love for you to engage in conversation, not just with me, but with Andrés. And so check out all of our links, subscribe, follow, engage with us. And keep following us, and join us again for another episode of Disrupt the Podcast.
And look, see how expertly she move hats. Guest, co-host, guest, co-host.
And it was fun.
It was fun. Great. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Bye.